there's actually so many other foods out there similar to what we're allowed to have. You just have to do your research and really find it. And they add that nutrient dense food that you need in order to really thrive. And so for me, I just discovered a whole new world where I can get creative with cooking, or I can add something else to, just the recipes. And it doesn't take all many ingredients. It can only take five ingredients, and you feel so much better. And so it was just relinquishing my ego and understanding that you have to adapt to change. This is another form, just like you adapt to change in many other instances in your life. You have to do this when it comes down to your health and when it comes down to food.
Do you guys know how difficult it is to find a high quality supplement line that doesn't just destroy your gut? Most pre-workouts and post-workouts, or even like on-the-go snack options like beef jerky or protein bars, they're terrible for your gut health. They're full of xanthan gum and guar gums and fillers and artificial sweeteners, which disrupt your gut microbiome and lead to chronic bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and not to mention when our gut is off, all of the other symptoms like hormone imbalances, thyroid issues, mental health issues, which is why I'm just obsessed about gut health. But anywho, I have not been able to find a good supplement line out there, and I had to cut out all of these fitness type supplements when I was really struggling with a lot of my own gut issues. Until recently, I found Paleo Valley. And Paleo Valley is one of the first supplement companies that hands down is incredible for your gut health, whether you're on a gut healing journey or you're someone who just wants to optimize your gut health and overall health. Their founder, Autumn, actually suffered with IBS herself. So she created this entire supplement line specifically to be gut friendly. And I'm not lying with you guys. Their whey protein powder, which is grass-fed and finished, gum-free, artificial sweetener-free, no issues, no bloating, no constipation, no diarrhea, no upset stomach, which is literally like the first time in my entire life that I've not had issues with a protein powder. And they even have super yummy grass-fed and finished beef jerky sticks, which are made with a collagen casing instead of the typical citric acid casing, which is terrible for your gut health. And if you want to try out some of their other products, they even have a bone broth protein powder. I love adding that into whether it's like my oatmeal in the morning or my protein shakes. It literally tastes like the Nestle hot chocolate powders, if you ever had those as a kid, which were not gut friendly. And then they have great supplements too, like their apple cider vinegar capsules or even their turmeric capsules, which are great for inflammation and gut health. So if you want to get a discount, you can use my code using the link in the show notes here, which is paleovalley.com/Rachel Scheer podcast. But all of that's going to be in the show notes. So check out the supplement line because guys, you know me, I would not have this on my podcast if it was not awesome and gut friendly.
Stormi Knight, this is Optimal Body RX. I am so excited to have you on here today.
I'm excited to be here, and thank you again for having me.
You are a fitness and diet expert as well as a first form athlete, and that's how you and I got connected. But one of the reasons I wanted you to come on Optimal Body RX is because I feel like you do represent overall fitness, right? Like you have an incredible body physique, like every woman would love to have, but you also are a beautiful representation of overall health. And you talk a lot about health. I know you've had an autoimmune condition and you've gone through a lot of your own struggles. So I'd love to dive in a bit more in depth today about what optimal fitness and optimal health truly is. But before we dive into that, I'd love for you to just share with the listeners, like your story for finding fitness and what even got you into this field.
Well, to be honest with you, I feel like I was never supposed to be in fitness at all. I was actually studying to become a forensic scientist, going into criminology, and like that was my whole thing. And then I wanted to like minor into physical therapy. So what happened was while I was working at the VA hospital, I was playing basketball and I had broke my leg in two places. And that completely changed my trajectory for life because going to the doctors and trying to get proper care, they were just telling me, oh, you're going to walk with one leg longer than the other because of how it's broken. And you're just going to have so many issues. You're not going to be able to work out. You're not going to be able to do sports like you really want to. So just get ready for that. And I was so disgusted by the answer I was given. Like that was the only thing I was supposed to settle with and just be okay with it. So I decided to change everything in my whole life as far as switching the major, going into kinesiology, going into biomechanics, and really understanding my body. Because at this point, I realized that this man wanted to just predict my whole future and have me be just accept this. And that's something I didn't want to do because I was stronger than that. I knew I was more capable, but then I also thought, how many more other people are going through the same things that I just went through? And they don't have the support. They don't know anything about fitness or health or not even in sports like this. So in my whole line of changing everything, while I was in college, I decided to train everybody for free, run free boot camps for everybody while I was in my task. And I was just like trying to teach people everything that I can while I was getting information, you know, through college and everything from all the professors. They were helping me along to provide help for other people just like me. And then that kind of ignited the passion for fitness and me wanting to just grow and expand outside that community.
I love that. And I love hearing everybody's, to fitness story because it's so different. Some people were like insanely unhealthy and overweight. And it's really cool to hear, your experience of, struggling with your physical health, right? And wanting to find fitness and not take, the standard, even Western medicine approach that very often is given. I know you've had a lot of experiences with that in your life, which we could totally nerd out on 100% for sure. But something I would love to dive into is really the difference between fitness and health, because I feel like sometimes like they do coexist, right? But we know that someone can be physically fit. They can maybe have six-pack abs. I know that was me when I was competing in bodybuilding, but not be healthy, right? And then we can have somebody else who maybe is eating a lot of healthy foods and they are doing certain things in their life that are healthy for them, but maybe they're not at what we would consider to be an optimal body composition. So what do you feel like is the big difference between health and fitness?
Well, I really like what you said in the beginning. They are related concepts and they almost seemingly go hand in hand together. And sometimes people think they are similar, but they're far in between. There's completely different. So you have fitness, right? That's more like physical fitness and ability to just perform. And then you have health, which is focusing on your social well-being. It's focusing on your mental health and all kind of things that are more holistic that will get you a little bit further along. Both are equally important. And I feel like there needs to be a balance because I do feel like there's a quite imbalance in the community of understanding between those things. And it's very difficult to keep up with. You know, you need to have a consistent balance between the two in order to grow and thrive. You need to be strong and fit so you can do whatever you can to protect yourself, feel whole. But then you also need to have a soundness of mind through health. And that's making sure your mental health is okay. And I feel like people kind of gawk at that in a sense like, oh, that's just ridiculous. Just work it off. You know, don't be small in how you feel in regards to certain things. But you need both to go hand in hand in order to keep a long, balanced lifestyle and consistency.
Yeah, that makes 100%. And I feel like there's this gap in the industry right now, like with fitness, right? It's more so about just lose weight, build muscle, which is a lot of what we're talking about here in Optimal Body RX, which is awesome. Totally for it. And, on the other end of the spectrum, though, we're not really considering optimal health. And there's this beautiful overlap between the two of the fitness side of everything and then overall health. And it's really figuring out where that middle ground ultimately is overall between the two. Have you ever struggled at all with your body composition or any of your own personal health issues?
Oh, yes. And I mean, when I tell you I lived so many different lives, and in fitness, I definitely went through my whole thing. You know, like you go through the state of just, my background is a track athlete as well. So I was running track and playing basketball, also figure skating, all kind of stuff. And so to get my knowledge from coaches, they were just telling me, don't eat anything. You know, like it would be one thing where it would be, for example, basketball, I need to gain all kind of weight, right? Just so that way it could be sturdy. And then when I'm defending people, I can be there. But then when it came down to track, lose all kind of weight. You need to not eat anything, no carbs. And so I felt like that was the start of everything, where I developed a imbalance within my hormones and not even knowing it. Just to give you some insight on that background. Then diving into just kind of competing with powerlifting and all kind of stuff. I just ate any kind of way that I thought was right, because people were telling me, you know, you should eat X, Y, and Z rice and have all this chicken and stuff, not realizing how it was impacting my gut. It was affecting me so bad, but I did not know that I had a permeable gut. And I did not know that I was pre-genetically disposed to certain autoimmune conditions. And, you know, that kind of opened up the door for my health to kind of go down the drain in a sense. Actually, it went completely down the drain. So I want to say in 2018, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease and lupus. And so I was a little confused because I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. So I went to go get retested again and again, and the result was the same. And I want to start with conventional medicine on how this started. And it really burnt me out and put me into a spiraling depression and made me sought out functional medicine. So I went to a conventional medicine doctor. And then I was 160 at the time, getting weighted, and I knew something was wrong. I wasn't able to go to work. I wasn't able to get up out of bed. My husband had to pick me up and take me to the shower, for example, things like that, because I just didn't understand what was happening with my body. It was almost as if it was completely shutting down and I just had no control over it. So I went to the conventional side of things. I was 160 at the time. They ran my blood, told me to come back in 2 weeks. Came back in 2 weeks. I dropped down to 129. And then I just couldn't keep food down. I couldn't do anything. And it was just, it could be water and I just couldn't keep it down. And I was trying to explain to the doctor, and he just sat me down and said, you know, I'm gonna just be honest with you. I'm a Christian and I'm a Buddhist. And I'm gonna tell you right now, all you care about is your looks. And I was,
wow.
Yeah, I was really mind blown when I looked at him. He was like, you're just upset because you're dropping weight this fast. And, you know, this is what happens when you get older. And it was, I didn't even know the words to say how upset and angry I was. And I had to point out to him on the records. I said, do you think it's normal for a person who's 160, always working out and competing, to drop from 160 to 129 in 2 weeks? Is that healthy? And then he had to sit with me and go, well, no, I don't think so. And I said, do you know how I got sick? Do you have any idea? And he was like, sitting there, not really giving me answers, because doctors won't tell you how you get sick because they don't know how you get sick.
Yeah.
They're, you know, in conventional side of things, they're not required to take a nutrition class, not even one. They are not required to do any of those things except take a pharmacology class. And it was in those moments I knew, I was like, this is a life or death situation. And if I don't get some help or some support, something's going to happen to me and it's not going to be good. And so thankfully, with some support of my friends, they helped me to research. And I was able to find a functional doctor who broke down everything and took my blood and understood everything that was happening, understood what was my gut food sensitivities that I needed to avoid, all my triggers. And so I started from there. And then I also stopped going to him because, you know, it can only get you so far until you have to keep changing things. The unique thing about autoimmunity is that your epigenetics has a big influence on that. Your environment has a big influence on that. All kind of things start to influence you as the years go by. And so you have to flow with that and understand it. And so that whole journey that I went through took me to a spiraling depression. And when you talked about health earlier, you asked me what was the difference. And I explained to you. And I feel like when it came down to this health, this is when I realized I wasn't taking care of myself on the health level. It was just only for a physical fitness. It was just fitness wise. But when it came down to the health and understanding the holistic side of things, I was like, oh my gosh, there was such a huge imbalance. Yeah. There was a massive imbalance where I really wasn't taking care of myself. And that was scary because I thought I was.
So many of you guys know my story of losing my health, dealing with hormonal imbalances, thyroid issues, depression, anxiety, and gut issues that were so severe. I almost had my entire large intestine removed, and Western medicine completely failed me. They gave me trash can diagnosis like IBS, depression, gave me a bunch of medications. And, if I wouldn't have taken my health in my own hands today, I would be without an entire organ, like literally. And that's why I created what I wish I had, what I needed, a holistic mind and body approach, a functional medicine approach that said, why do we have this problem in the first place? And what can we do to restore function? This is the difference between thriving instead of just surviving and managing your symptoms. So if you're somebody who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, dealing with stubborn gut issues or hormonal imbalances or weight loss that you feel like is not moving anywhere, or thyroid issues and autoimmune condition, there is hope. There is another approach. And me and my team of registered dietitians, we want to help you. We want to be the support there for you. We want to do the functional medicine lab testing, look at your gut, your hormones, your thyroid, your adrenals, deficiencies, toxins that you can have in your body, get to know what you're doing with your nutrition, look at your lifestyle, look at your previous medical history, and help you create a customized plan to not just only heal, but get to the best health of your entire life. So if you're somebody who's ready to take a root cause approach to healing and step into the best version of you, fill out our application on our website, rachelscheer.com, and book a free 30-minute call. Absolutely free to do this call. Our goal on this call is to better get to know your goals and how this approach may work for you. So click the link in the show notes and book a free call if you would like to learn more.
That is so powerful. And I connect so much with your journey, especially as I do functional nutrition and I do all of the testing, the gut microbiome. I work with a lot of people with autoimmune conditions. And there are a lot of people, who can be physically fit and they're not healthy per se. So I would imagine like your definition of health really actually changed throughout this entire process of, yes, we want to get to an optimal body composition because that is a pillar. I would say it's like a pillar of all of health, but it is not the sole indicator of overall health. And I can imagine that was like really the wake up call of like, okay, on the outside, some people may consider me to be the epitome on health, but on the inside, there's a lot of things that there's, a disconnect between intestinal permeability, my gut being off, and for a lot of people, it's stress, it's the emotional, it's the mental side, and all of those things we don't think about do play a role, though, in our body composition. And it shouldn't be just about that, but you also shared a little bit of how, you went through a lot of these weight changes that affected your body composition and that how your metabolism even worked, right? So when your thyroid is affected, whether you have Hashimoto's or Graves', and sometimes people who are even over diet and their thyroid is affected metabolically, this is going to affect their body composition. And someone could say, hey, I'm eating the right macros, I'm getting in enough protein, and I'm doing the right things, quote unquote, but there's things that are off internally in my body that can also play a big role, not only in body composition for overall health. So I applaud you for being your own advocate, because a lot of people aren't, right? And I know I had to be, because if I wasn't for my health, I'd be without a large intestine because of all of my gut issues. And that's what got me in the functional side as a bodybuilder and really like, hey guys, this is what health is. We can have the body composition. And I would imagine you're still passionate about fitness and wanting to look good naked and in a bikini and all of that. Like, who doesn't, right? And it's like, that doesn't ever go away. But the definition of health and really the why behind it really shifts over time for sure.
Oh, I completely agree. And it was one of those things where like it shifts you as a coach and it makes you really understand like how can you find a need to fill a need in that area. And then even talking to some coaches now, you could just completely see the disconnect and really trying to help their clients and or people just hearing their perspective, like, that is all foo-foo stuff. That doesn't even count. A lot of people are completely unaware because it hasn't happened to them or it hasn't happened to a loved one that's close by where they can truly understand.
What were some of the biggest shifts you had to make when you found out a lot of this, right? You were training pretty hard, I would imagine.
Yes.
Like you were eating what we would consider relatively healthy, but what were some like those big shifts you had to make?
Well, just those 2 points you mentioned, my whole training schedule completely shifted. And I had to become aware of like having to shed that part away, and the ego was fighting. It was just the worst thing ever because I love working out, and sometimes it would be 5 days out of the week, 2 times a day. It would be different things, and it would be me just being adventurous, climbing mountains, just running, doing all kind of stuff. That shifted because my body was like, I'm not allowing you to do anything. You have to take care of yourself on another level, and you have to start all over.
Hmm.
This time, you have to do it in a very smart, efficient way where you're going to thrive. So my workout schedule completely changed in a way where I had to stop working out 5 to 7 days out of the week to now only 4 days out of the week. And I'm okay with that because I can see a change in my body where it's the cortisol levels is not through the roof to the point where it's completely stressing me out and it's debilitating my body, but I'm actually taking care of it. So it's weightlifting, training like that, but then also the recovery is important. I'm doing the proper recovery, even when it comes down to yoga, it's coming down to acupuncture, it's coming down to all kind of recovery things that will help my body. It had to shift in that. And then food. I mean, I cannot eat the same things like I used to. That had to change tremendously in order for me to be able to perform because it takes a lot of production just to be here, as you already know. So I couldn't no longer eat any kind of dairy, any kind of soy, any kind of gluten. It was just things that would set off my thyroid or any type of flare ups. And I would just be in immense pain and I couldn't keep anything down. So just getting rid of that, only eating quality meats, like red meats, eliminating lamb, eliminating a lot of nightshades, all of my favorite kind of vegetables and stuff. I could no longer eat, and I still can no longer eat. I just avoid all those kinds of things in order for me to thrive better. And I'm also resting a lot more than I would ever like to, but it's what my body calls for at this time.
Yeah. And I think for everybody listening here, what Stormi really speaks to is really understanding your body, knowing where your body is at on your health journey. If there are things that are internally off outside of just, where is my body composition? Like there was some things that were, really, really off with her gut and her immune system where she needed to make some big, big changes overall. Now, this isn't to say go cut all red meat out of your diet or cut out nightshades out of your diet. That's what she had to do because of her autoimmune condition. But she did that because overall she cared enough for her body and she was an advocate for herself ultimately in having optimal health, which we're talking about optimal health in conjunction with optimal body composition. So if you're somebody who feels like you're doing a lot of the right things. And sometimes that is how we feel. And we just don't understand, like you said, certain things and how it's affecting our body, our immune system, our gut microbiota, get proper lab testing done. Functional medicine
Yes.
is incredible for that to try to understand what is off in your body so you can find a bit more of a customized plan and program ultimately for you. So I love that you share that and how you had to really make some big changes of where a lot of people, it's like this is not like, hey, I'm just going to cut calories. I feel like anybody who's ever really struggled with their health beyond maybe just like weight, like it's a completely different lens overall. And we're like, I'll do whatever I need to do. And it's not,
Exactly.
and some people look at it from the lens of restrictive. I look at it from the lens of healing ultimately. And it is kind of shifting that lens, right? Where oftentimes we're like, I don't want to cut out these foods. It's restrictive, but it's not, and it's really what the body needs where it's at. But sometimes the goal is to get the body back to overall health where we can enjoy some of those other foods later on.
I really want to, if you don't mind, I want to touch
Yeah.
bases on what you said. I love what you said about food being very healing because that's how I viewed it. My ego kind of fought me because I'm like, no, I'm so used to the basic American diets, like what we have here. But what I found was when I had to make this shift, there's actually so many other foods out there similar to what we're allowed to have. You just have to do your research and really find it. And they add that nutrient dense food that you need in order to really thrive. And so for me, I just discovered a whole new world where I can get creative with cooking, or I can add something else to, just the recipes. And it doesn't take all many ingredients. It can only take 5 ingredients and you feel so much better. And so it was just relinquishing my ego and understanding that you have to adapt to change. This is another form, just like you adapt to change in many other instances in your life. You have to do this when it comes down to your health and when it comes down to food, because we just have a certain emotional attachment to food, some of us, or that dopamine effect where, oh, this feels good, I will never ever give this up. But when you shift that concept of it, hey, I'm trying to find foods that are healing for me and it's going to flow just fine. You really do find a lot more different options out there as long as you're willing to get creative and really do the work.
Yeah. And I would imagine you have a pretty good dialed in routine now with all of this where you don't feel restrictive, which I want to definitely touch on here in a minute. But just commenting on like the restrictive piece again for everybody listening, like we only feel restricted when we feel like we're missing out, right? Like for me, someone may actually look at my diet and be like, that's way too restrictive. I could never do that. And I'm like, I love the food I eat. I thrive off of the food I eat. I feel good. I enjoy the food that I eat. It's not restrictive to me. So we use that word restrictive anytime we feel like we're really missing out on something else. And we could really easily make a shift to, just finding the diet that's more optimal to me. Like this is my optimal diet. And it's not restrictive if we're also cutting out foods that are wreaking havoc on our body. Like that's not restrictive. That's called self-love, right? Choosing to eat foods that love us back ultimately. And that's what we're after if we are truly after optimal health, aesthetics, but also health simultaneously at the same time, which they go hand in hand together. But coming back to habits and routine, like I would imagine you have a pretty dialed in routine. Anybody who's gone through health issues does. I know that because I work with a lot of them. I'm one of them myself. Also, you have an incredible body composition. So what does that look like for you? Like morning routines, some of the routines that just kind of help you thrive and maintain where you're currently at now.
So I love this question. And first, before I dive into breaking down my whole routine, I want to say it all starts with self-awareness and being completely honest with yourself. I think like people, sometimes we often want to like glaze over that fact and not really be honest and self-aware with ourselves. So for me, I had to truly dive in to that for my routine and be honest with myself on, what I need to cut out, any type of distractions, things that are energy draining, and then be able to cultivate this optimal routine that really works for me. And for me, with that is just like in the morning, for example, I keep my phone off for a very long time in the morning until I was able to meditate, walk my dogs, take care of everything, and then light work in the morning. So that way I can be able to be fully focused. And then I'll turn my phone on. But typically I'm like up by 7 a.m. and I'm doing all these things. And I give myself about 3 hours leeway before I even turn on my phone. And I know it sounds ridiculous for most people, but in this season of my life, I needed that shift because I did not realize that yet again, there's layers to everything. I wasn't taking care of my emotional well-being and my mental health. And so this time I wanted to make sure I had a quiet morning. I had a morning to myself where I can gather my thoughts and I can just focus, do some breath work, meditate a little bit, and then go on throughout my day, being on social media and then being able to just be in many different events as a coach and then as a leader in a certain part of our communities and things like that. So having that core morning routine truly helps me to be able to set my day. And then not only that, I would say for me, creating a plan was the biggest thing too. So always having a plan a week in advance. I'm sure you're the same way, if not 2 weeks in advance, always making sure you stay on top of that plan, being consistent, but also staying small in a sense of not overwhelming yourself with too much. And so I just try and have balanced days where I can be most consistent and I can thrive and I can be productive and not just busy.
I'm curious what your food routine looks like, or if you have a food routine. And I'll give you an example because I feel like I have a food routine and I'm a very like autopilot person. I'm at this point now where I know what works for my body. I know what makes my gut feel good, the foods that love me back, that I eat those. I know how much protein I need. I tracked macros for a period in my life, especially when I was competing. So I know roughly what's in everything, what my plate should look like. So for most meals for me, like they look kind of the same. Like I usually am getting at least like a good 5 ounces of animal protein. I know to grab some non-starchy vegetables. I throw those in there. I train a good amount, probably a little bit too much with and not enough recovery. So I have usually some starches, sweet potato, things like that in there. And then I'll have some kind of fats, whether it's like avocado and olives. And like I rotate different foods. But for me, like I rarely even plan anymore, like at least the food side of everything. It's just very
Yes.
much like just in my nature of this is what my food looks like, and I probably rotate proteins and veggies and sometimes kind of fats, but I love avocado too much. And
Girl, me
then
too. I need to
the
have it all the
starches,
time, especially in the morning. I
like in
feel
every
you.
single meal I feel like I eat, and it just has become like autopilot. And I know at this point
Mhm.
I can maintain my body composition without having to really work super hard. And I know for other people it's different, right? They have to, like, they're trying to get to a certain point. Like getting to a point is a bit different than just getting to an optimization place where you're a bit more on autopilot. It's the same with my workouts right now too. So I'm curious if you have any of that where like this is just what I do, workouts, nutrition, and I'm good.
Yes. Yes. So that's how I feel when it comes down to meal planning. I don't need to do it. I eyeball it. I make sure that I do get in my at least 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. And I try and maximize that by getting them in my snacks too. I definitely am heavy on getting some good fats, especially for my brain. I need all that kind of functions. Making sure it's just the meals are just the same. And then if I want to splurge, maybe I'll just start to make my own homemade pizza or something like that. But that's not until typically the weekends. But I'm good with just being consistent on my meals. And then if I'm looking to enhance anything as far as being able to gain weight, things like that, put on more muscle, I would obviously just increase all that and then just heavy lifting, different things like that that will help me along the way. But for the most part, I just don't need to really think about it.
Yeah.
I do plan my workout schedules though, because I try to optimize my workouts as much as I can without destroying myself, because it's almost like a double-edged sword. I'm sure you definitely experience that. So you can work out, but then it will also create a chain of effects on some other things. So I try my best to, as I'm creating that stress for my body, I try and offset that with good resting or good recovery, anything that will help me out.
Mm. What does that look like? So offsetting your workouts with good recovery, is that, getting it in the morning and having a rest period immediately after? Describe that a bit for me, if you don't mind.
So yeah, no problem. So if I were to work out, and my good weeks are like, I'll get in 4 really good days. But in between that, sometimes depending on how my body is and how it feels, because I'm at the point where sometimes it's out of my control, what I'll do is I will train well, let's say probably an hour, and then it will be weightlifting, moderate, just to see how my body is, things like that. And then later on in the evening will be good recovery with trigger ball release therapy, for example, mobilizing like a good flow. I love to get a good flow throughout the evening. And then the next day I'll do a rest day, but it won't be a true rest day, more like an active recovery
Mm.
rest day where there's just yoga. And then the following day we'll get back to weightlifting, weight training. And I like to break that up between the body composition parts and stuff like that. So sometimes it'll be a push or a pull day. And so that's how I normally do it. And then following through with a good recovery bath or a cold plunge, something that I love to do.
I love that you talk about like training hard, but then still being active thereafter, but really listening to your body. Have you ever had the weeks where you just trained consecutively pretty hard? What did you notice was different on those weeks?
Oh man, and let me tell you, I love it too when it's just flowing so well.
Ego.
But the
I want to
off,
do that all the time.
right? Yeah, no, that's how I feel. And I'm just like, oh no, I'm going. Let me tell you what happens. My body the next week goes, you're gonna pay for this. And then literally I find myself in a bed for days out of weeks, sometimes and even a month.
Mm.
And a lot of people don't see this, and I really don't like showing that, but it really disheartens me and sends me to a spiraling depression. So that's when I notice the level of stress, even if it's physical and it's not mental stress, my body takes a hit. My body does not like it when I overstress myself, because now it's gotten to the point where it can no longer handle that amount of stress
Mm.
anymore. And it goes to the point where I have to stay in bed. So in order to offset that, in order for me to be consistent, I have to know my limits.
Yeah.
4 days out of the week is solid. I can even push it to 5, but I have to do heavy recovery based off the situation I'm in order to keep going.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of production and a lot of process in order to stay consistent, because I noticed my body taking a hit. And what I mean by this is I can, it's like having shards of glass throughout my joints, throughout my whole entire body. That's what it feels like. And I'm like, this is weird. It feels like I'm stepping on glass, or anything that I do, anything that I pick up, it's just immense amount of pain, where no matter what I do, there's no stopping it. I just have to wait until it subsides. And that's when I realized I really have to take this seriously. If I'm going to be consistent at anything that I do, and I want to stay on a good plan to achieve a goal, I have to not overdo it. So that way, when it comes down to me, on that other side, when the flare up hits, I'm not in a bed for weeks or a month at a time.
Yeah. Do you feel like a lot of that's due to your autoimmune condition, like that kind of exaggerated response that you get from like training really hard? Because I would imagine a lot of people, like if they're under recovering, they start to notice just a lot of fatigue, a lot, maybe some like soreness, achiness, trouble sleeping, right? Because just the adrenals are pumping out a lot of cortisol, and inflammation's higher when we're training pretty hard and not really getting that recovery. So those are like some of the things I've seen a bit, but would you say a lot of yours is more so because of the autoimmune condition?
Oh, definitely. And it was never like this before. Maybe it was like bits and pieces prior, and I just was like, I could deal with this. It's just nothing but
For
being
sure.
sore. You know what I mean? And I love that feeling. I could tell the difference between my body being sore, and then my body going into an immense flare up where it's so painful I can't move, and I'm in so much pain I can't eat anything. And so this is heightened to beyond the capacity of me being able to handle that pain. So it's easier to just give my body rest, because my body won't allow me to do anything else. And it's surrendering that ego of like letting that go, because that is like, oh my gosh, I'm in a fitness space. I'm doing all this as a coach, and I can't even, like, oh my goodness, like it really messes with your mind and puts you in a spiraling depression. And I've had all those bouts where I can't afford to be in a boutful depression state. In order to avoid all this, I really have to stay on top of my most optimal schedule and my most optimal routine, so that way I can keep showing up.
Yeah. And it forces you to be super intuitive with your body too. And that's what I'm really hearing from you throughout all this, is like, you're very intuitive with your body. Now on like the food side of everything, what allows you to feel good, what allows you to perform in the gym, your very best with your workouts, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna push hard today. Now I'm going to kind of recover. I'm going to go slow, but okay, I'm kind of noticing like, okay, I need to kind of rest here today. And I feel like a lot of people don't have that ability. We just have they just kind of say Monday is leg day. You do leg day. Saturday is rest day. You rest on this day. And what you do is you actually listen to your body, which is like a lost skill I feel like we have.
I agree with
Don't
you.
have.
Oh yeah, we really don't. And that's why I tell people, I've had clients walk away from me when I've said this. Like, you have to be self-aware. And I really mean that to your truest core. You have to be self-aware of what you're doing, the environment you're around, the people you're around, the support group system you have, and how you do things, and even how you think. And I had to turn certain people down because they were just so negative. And they got so mad at me because it was like, oh, you don't want to help me. And I was like, it's not that I don't want to help you, it's that I can no longer help you. There won't be anything until you become self-aware of what you're doing and how you're doing things. Because sometimes we tell ourselves a story and it's not really that.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important.
And I think just following just like those, kind of said, like those set just regimens of like, this is how it has to be, and not paying any attention to, dude, my body needs a rest day today. Like I need to chill out. I know it's leg day. I know, and that's hard. Like you said, it's the ego side. I still struggle with that. And I need to optimize my recovery like way more, because I'm like, man, like this now affects my sleep in ways it hasn't in the past, where I could just push hard all the time. And I think some of the biggest reasons why people struggle, even on the body composition side, when they are training and maybe they are dialing in their nutrition, or what they think is dialing in their nutrition, is they're not really managing that stress side. And we could say stress is, right, emotional stress, which it can definitely be a component, but a lot of us don't think of like stress in terms of like, I'm getting actually good recovery, I'm sleeping, I'm having time where my body's actually in a parasympathetic response for a good amount of time, instead of most of us are always in that, fight or flight type response, where at work, we're activated with our kids, we're activated, in our workouts and everything we do. And we're like, oh, why do I feel so exhausted and tired all the time? And why am I not getting the results I want? Well, I live in this hyper aroused state 24/7. And I think that's most people.
Yeah, and I like what you said there too. So imagine that, and then our body's in a constant inflamed state. So everything is inflamed, and that's causing disruption in the mind and the hormones and all that kind of stuff. And you're in that stressful state. Your body's going to take a hit at some point, you know?
Yeah, 100% for sure. It all comes and catches up with us at some point. Do you have any current fitness goals that you're aiming for right now? Or
It's really funny. I actually do want to compete because
like
I have a
bodybuilding
whole,
compete?
yeah, I've
Okay.
never done that. I've tried everything else. This is interesting, I know, but it's a different type of trajectory in a way where I have a more understanding of knowledge and certain things. And so if I can optimize things on a better level, I do want to jump in there just to try it once and not to be a whole-on competitor. But with all the information I do have and the food I'm able to eat, and now I'm on a better type of regime. So I want to be able to apply that and see where I can go with it just for one time, nothing to be obsessed with or anything like that. I just kind of want to explore that. And then also, that's it for the most part. I mean, just get better over time.
So are you prepping for a competition?
Well, I'm actually talking to a few coaches because I'm saying this as something I'm really interested in. And so before I continue on moving forward, because I do want to try and do a competition for maybe even next year, I've been talking to some coaches and making sure like, all right, I can be completely dedicated to this first. But yes, I definitely want to compete in one competition. So if you have any advice for me, I'm open and all ears.
Definitely. We'll be chatting. I just helped my client Claude, who has an autoimmune condition, prep for her first competition as well after everything.
Oh,
so
wow.
We'll have to definitely chat about that. But overall, right now with your nutrition, do you feel like you have to track macros to maintain your current body composition, or do you at all?
Yes and no. I actually kind of eyeball things for the most part. I have weighed my food oftentimes if I'm not familiar with it, but because I have such a consistent schedule of foods that I eat, I just eyeball everything. And then if it's something new or I'm changing certain things in my food, I go back to just using that scale because it's nothing like being able to have an accuracy when it comes down to weighing your foods.
Yeah, that
and
makes
tracking that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you have any favorite exercises that you do for an optimal body composition?
Oh my gosh. Um, for those listening out there who know me, you guys know I'm obsessed with the kettlebells. So I swing them all the time. Anything involving that. I know you asked for exercise when it comes on the body composition, but like anything involving the kettlebell, I'm truly obsessed with. I personally, and though people may disagree and whatnot, I feel like I get my most optimal exercises workout routine, and I feel great using the kettlebell, full body explosive movements, and being able to really tighten up my chain of my body and things like that. So, I mean, I know it wasn't your question, but anything involving the kettlebell, yes.
Do you like it because it's just fun to throw things around, or more so because you're like, this really dials in my body comp?
It really dials in my body comp. And don't get me wrong, I love throwing things around. I would love to throw a barbell around. That's my thing. But with the kettlebell, I definitely notice a difference in my body, especially when I use it. And since I'm short for time when it comes down to optimizing my workouts and I want to make as much as I can optimal, kettlebells, I could just work with that for 25 minutes and I get just such an insane workout and a good pump from that, that I just stick to certain things like that. And I'll do functional exercises, anything to activate my core and keep things sturdy and strong.
Love that. I've done some kettlebell exercises, but nowhere near to like all the stuff that you do with them. But every time I've done it, I'm always surprised by how many different muscle groups are truly involved in doing a lot of the kettlebell workouts. A lot of us try to do that through like squats and compound lifts overall, but yeah, it's a workout for sure.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. And I've loved this conversation overall. Are there any last tips that you would give the audience about building an optimal body composition or optimal health?
Yes, I would say if you're going through anything, definitely get some solid support. There's nothing wrong with conventional medicine, but I highly recommend to take a functional approach to things. If you are struggling, I highly recommend to get some blood work done. Definitely get a food sensitivity test. And then ask around, ask knowledgeable people, even ask Rachel, because she's also been in all spaces and she's an expert herself, because you need people like that to really help you along. Whereas there's a plethora of information out there, you need to go with someone who's had that experience and who also has the expertise to feel better. And then my last point is definitely heal the gut. Understand that all disease starts within the gut, and it's very important to understand your what's happening within your body, and how your epigenetics changes everything. And then I would also say understanding things that manifest itself metaphysically. So by understanding your gut and understanding certain diseases, can help you to understand why certain things are happening outside yourself and your environment too, in order to fix that. So yes.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Optimal health, get proper testing done. Know your body, know what works best for your body, because it's 100% an individual approach. Gut health, you're speaking my language there. 100% heal your gut, heal your life. Everything improves, even body composition. We can actually have gut issues without having gut issues, and it affecting things like our hormones, our thyroid, our metabolic function overall. So this has been an incredible conversation. So valuable. Stormi, where can people find you and follow you on social media?
So you can find me on Instagram at Stormi Knight _. I am there. I'm also on TikTok. I'm also on Triller if you guys are there too. And I'm now building a Facebook community for neurosequential sport for coaches and fitness experts who are looking to better help their clients, to help them become more regulated in a versus a dysregulated state. So if you guys need help, I'll be building a community with other experts and coaches who will help us to kind of start changing that mindset that we have when it comes down to fitness, and then just feeling more regulated versus dysregulated, since we're overwhelmed in this system.
Love it. Thanks for coming on, Stormi. And thanks you guys for listening. This is Optimal Body RX.